Hey everyone, Jerison here again, here to talk about some more Stellar Armada. As you've heard about in my previous videos, working on this fantastic game, Stellar Armada, for only $1. But I've gotten some interest in how this game went from prototype to final game. So I thought I'd walk you through some of the prototyping I did. Every prototype, of course, starts out with something like this. This is a pretty basic drawing of what the game board looks like, right? If you compare this to the final card, it's not too different. Many of the same concepts are here, right? There's ammo over here. No, sorry, that's the shields. We've got missile launchers over here, masers down here, the reactors down here for some reason, repair, and engines. Basically, you can see that I started with a whole bunch of ideas, started putting them wherever I could find space. So that was a basic drawing. This never got played. What I did was I took that drawing and I turned it into real game boards. I took a ruler, measured out how big I wanted the squares, which was, I believe I went with 1 centimeter, which is a good size to start with for the type of tokens I was using. I started with square Euro cubes that look like this, right? These are great, perfect for prototyping. You just take them, they fit on whatever it is you're doing. So those were great. At this point, I hadn't yet figured out the cardboard markers. In fact, at this point, I had no idea what the final size would be. I just started with some blank index cards. These are great for prototyping. Have a bunch of these around if you don't already have them around. So, these actually got played. My playtester and I, we went through these many times and went through iterations of the rules on this. So in the first go around, you notice that the reactor actually had 10 points. Turned out to be too many points to spend. Ended up the ships were so powerful they were hard to defeat, and you would utilize all your ammo before you could destroy each other, and it was just a mess, right? Simple small changes over time made all the difference, and we would just remember what those rule changes were and work from this. So like when we'd set up the board, we'd start on 6 instead of 10 when we reduced the amount of reactor power. That was a lot of fun, and as we went along, I just took notes and wrote down the expected rules so we wouldn't lose track of them. From there, I came up with a first draft of a GIMP prototype, if you will. I did this in the graphics art program GIMP. This is where the idea first started gelling. You can kind of see if you look carefully here, because it is a little bit of a mess, so it's not obvious, right? But you can see your ammo up there. You can see these are sort of shaped like the shields. Repairs just nestled in here. The reactor here in the center, that was very important from a graphical perspective. I felt that the reactor had to be in the center so that you had this idea that these other systems would protect the reactor from damage. Because this was sort of the first crack at it, the labels weren't here yet, so I just wrote them onto the cards. And notice the other ones were blank, and we just tried to remember. Notice this marking here. At this point, you still had 3 missile launchers. That proved to be too many because 1 lucky hit and the game was over. 2 missiles are bad enough. 3 was just ridiculous. So this marker was to say that this was armor as opposed to a missile launcher. So that was a small change in the game that made it into the final revision. You can see that you've got an armor point there and only 2 launchers, right? So these went through further playtesting, and these were great because I could replicate these in mass, take them with me to playtest with someone, and even leave copies for others to play with. So great place to go from there. From there, I wanted to get a little more professional, right? I wanted to get the idea of what it should actually look like. By this point, I was still working out the final size of these. Based on what I could get from the prototyping company I looked at, right? These guys, if you've never heard of them, Print and Play Games, they are fantastic. I will show you their work in a moment here, but you can get really good stuff from them. But based on just what they had, their pricing and everything, I finally landed on these being poker card size, which is exactly what you see here. You'll notice that this fits over perfectly. So that was kind of where I was going with this. So then I really wanted to prototype what poker cards might look like. These are interesting because these are the second version of these, right? So these cards, these were not really fit for final print. So what I did was I did some further graphics art and came up with what I felt was the final look and feel, or close to the final look and feel that I wanted. And I also created the instructions and figured out how to make them fit. That was very important, right? To keep costs down, the instructions had to be right there for you to be able to see. You'll notice that I played with both the rounded corners and with the square corners. Square corners are actually quite nice. Rounded corners, though, hold together a little better. These have what we call good snap, because what I did with these was I did not core them. These are basically these 3.5 or 3x5 index cards. I printed out on these, glued these together, and that glued together card was then cut out based on the image, giving me this final product, which actually came out surprisingly nice. In fact, the print and play for this will be based on this concept. These cards are very usable and feel very professional. You can see that the laser printer here, the ink is coming off. That's not ideal. I'll explain in the final print and play how to coat these with a lacquer or a varnish that will protect them. But more than likely, for most people, their final print and play will look like this, with just gluing these together with a glue stick. The rounded corners, maybe you're good at this, but my rounded corners, this one didn't turn out too badly. But you can kind of see here that it's a little misshapen, right? This one, again, the one side here looks really good. This side looks a little too odd, right? But this double side like this, it has good snap, holds together fairly well. Those were good. From there, I decided to create chord cards, which were a little tougher. Right. Great thing about this 3x5 index card solution is that I could mass produce these and just hand them to people, right? So much like these, right, that I could leave with people and I could play with them, but these actually have the instructions on them. These cards were made out of 3 layers of 3x5 index card, right? So they printed one layer, printed another, and then took a blank card, put it in between, glued stick all 3 together, and we get these cards. These do not have as nice of a snap, as it were. It's okay, but these are thicker, right? Which is great for just using them as player mats, right? These were fantastic for play testing and prototypes. And they feel really good in the hand, but they do feel thick, unlike these cards, which feel very thin. All depends upon what you're looking for. If I was going to be making cards that were playing cards, right? If I was holding these up like these, going pick card, any card, yeah, I wouldn't make them this thick. This is too thick for normal usage, but for my purposes, player mats, these are great. You'll notice that the corners also got a lot better here. These corners, in fact, look fantastic. How did I pull that off? Well, I went to Joann Fabrics and picked this bugger up. This is a Fisker's cornering tool. What you do, this is great. I love this thing. Once I got this, I want to corner everything. All you do is just take the piece of paper, whatever it is, I took these cards, put them in here like this, and just snap, rounded corner. Brilliant. This is the small size. Medium and large size are really for crafting. I don't recommend using those. In fact, this is quite a large corner even for a playing card, but it's pretty decent, right? Let's see. You can see this is a bit larger of a corner than even the print and play guys would use. A lot of professional cards will come with even shorter corners than that. But the results are fantastic. It looks great, right? It's perfectly usable. It's nice and round, right? And corner, corner. I could do that all day, right? Looks fantastic. I love it. All right. So that was perfect. We're doing really well to this point, right? But notice my printer is black and white. This is not good enough, right? If I was going to send this to reviewers or whatnot, I wanted to send them something quality. So enter Print and Play Games. These guys let me print stuff really cheap. Well, cheap's a relative term, but it's, very, very affordable. So I got 2 sets in sort of the first initial prototype. Notice that this one has the early logo on it. Snap on these cards, fantastic. These are the basic gloss cards. Notice that there's a bit of a white edge on this. This is because I didn't properly account for the bleed. The bleed is the area that the card might shift during cutting. You need to give a little extra card so that if it cuts a little off, right, they have some extra card to give you and you don't see this edge like this. I knew about that when I sent this out to the printers. It was a first prototype. It was expected to be a first prototype, so I was just hopeful the bleed wasn't too bad, and on most of these cards it wasn't. It varies among them, but for most uses these were fine. You can see some of these have more edge than others, but these feel like real cards, right? You can just sit there and be like, pick card, any card, right? It's fantastic. This particular set is the lightest card they have, the basic gloss card. Pretty happy with these. These are perfectly reasonable. If you hold them up to light though, you can see through them, which is perfectly fine for my uses. But given this player mat, I did want to try a little heavier option as well. And so I tried their 310 GSM solution. Now this is not quite the same thing as a 310 GSM playing card that you might get from a professional manufacturer, but it is heavier than the 270 they have here. These 310s, a little bit heavier, still have a really good snap. This particular one has a black core, so if I hold it up to light, I can't see through it, which is great. Yeah, I just love these. These feel really good in the hand. I love the weight. Now, Print and Play did also have a linen card. I tried to avoid the linen card because what linen is really good at is creating an air boundary layer between the card and the table or any components. I did not want these to slide a lot, right? Since these were intended to be used as player mats, the idea is that they should sit still and should hold components just fine, right? So went with the gloss and the matte finish. Right. Then the final prototypes over here, they sent me these samples along with it, which I really appreciate. Print and Play is actually owned by AdMagic, which don't know too much about them, but I do know that I love these Print and Play cards. So the final ones, I corrected the bleed. You'll notice that there is no white edges on these. There was quite a bit of extra card that was sent to the printers so that when they cut, right, even if it was off by 0.5 millimeter or something, right? You wouldn't get a white edge. And then the same had to be done for the back. In the first set, there was no coloring on the back other than the logo, which this is designed on black. It didn't really come out as well on white. Also, I went with this episode 1 skirmish. The idea is that this may be the first game in a series, but this is kind of cutesy. This felt way more professional, right? Stellar Armada logo, and we reduced the subtitle just skirmish. The two-tone makes it look really cool, really professional. The rounded area really kind of brings out the quality of the card. You know, we have our key statistics down here. Just comes out really good overall. I really like these. So that was the final set. These are ideally highly indicative of what would actually go out to print. Now, these are still not printed as well as a professional manufacturer could create. If these were sent out to someone like a Panda GM or Wingo or Ludi Creations, they would use a full-up process of creating plates and doing 4-tone printing. I'm not entirely sure how Print and Play does it, but I'm fairly certain that they couldn't afford to do a plate for every time someone wanted a single sheet of cards run off. So whatever they're doing, it comes out quite good. I really like it, but for whatever reason, it does come out really good, but it's just not the same as an actual manufacturer, which would be a little higher resolution. One last thing to kind of give the idea of some of the thinking that goes into these things. When I originally did these cards, I had this idea that, hey, you know, when you're looking at this, you'll just want to flip over the card and look at this, right? You know, do something like this. That seemed like good thinking at the time, and then when I play it like this, I'd be like, okay, I want to look at the instructions. Whoops, it's upside down, right? So one of the things that will be corrected in the final print run is to change the direction of the instructions compared to the front of the card, so that when you have it laying down like this, right, you can pick it up, and there you go, right? Which is how most right-handers do it. You left-handers have it pretty easy here because it'll come out the right way, but most people in the United States are right-handed, so we'll try and accommodate them. So that's the story. That's kind of what all that went into the development of all these cards. Hope you found this interesting. If you did, please like this video. You know, like it on Facebook, retweet it on Twitter. I appreciate it tremendously. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. And if you want to email me, I do not put my email on websites because I get enough spam as it is, but you can always email me at jbanes@gmail.com. That's JBANES @gmail.com. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you on Kickstarter.